Greetings, wellness community. My name is Lillie, and I am happy to have you back again, joining us for another episode of Generational Health. This is my second podcast, and I'm truly excited to have you join me today so we can discuss my personal journey to wellness and how I started on this journey and what led me down the path to even consider aligning with my own physical body and to even consider self-care as a way to maintain the physical body that I have. So anyway, let's get started a little bit today about who I am, why I did this, and how I got into this. It's a little bit, it's interesting. I'm going to start with let's go back to the beginning. The beginning was probably this whole thing started about 20 years ago, I would say 20 years. Where I woke up, I had my annual exam, pap smear and everything else, and my exam, and there were like small, tiny, maybe tumors, and I wasn't even tumors, there was little small, like maybe pea-sized polyps and things in my body, my uterus. But at that time, they were of no concern. I was told by the physician that they pretty much were not anything that was going to cause any problems, or if I were to decide to have children, that wouldn't even be an issue because they were just there, but they weren't intrusive enough to cause any damage to my internal organs at that point. So basically I took that information, went on about my business, and I made no changes. I just basically said they weren't a problem, they were there. But anything that's within the body that didn't come with the body, that wasn't part of the body, that shows up in the body, that's a red flag. It was a red flag then, and it's going to become a huge red flag later on. So about 10 years moving forward, I was working a late shift. I do events and I do community outreach, and so I decided to stay. Well, I was working with someone, and we drove home together. I drove home and drove to her house, but she said to me, why don't you just spend the night at my place instead of going home? And she was going to go somewhere else and spend some time with her boyfriend. So I basically stayed the night at her house, and all was well. Everything was fine. I woke up about 9 o'clock a.m. that morning, and what I noticed was that my abdomen was pulsating. It was pulsating. And so being a person that really never had any concerns regarding my physical health, I didn't really think twice about it. It just pulsated, and you can imagine, I'll give you an example. You take your hand and make a fist, and you open it and you close it, and you open it and you close it, and you open it and close it. That's how much blood was pumping through the arteries, and that's what was going on with my system. But I wasn't at a concern level. So about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I decided that maybe it was time to go to the emergency room just to see what was going on. So I called a friend of mine and I said, I'm going to go to the emergency room. There are some things going on with my body that I'm not quite sure how to explain, but I need to have someone check it out. I said to her, here's a couple of things. I'm going to give you 3 numbers of relatives to call in case something is seriously wrong. And then I'm going to check in with you because it's emergency room. So I'll check in with you probably in the next 8 hours. And if I don't check in with you in the next 8 hours, then there is something definitely wrong. So I made those arrangements. We said fine. And I went to the emergency room. I got there, of course, there's a wait. But when they finally were able to see me and do the body scan, they came back and said to me, we have good news, we have bad news. So I said, okay. Again, not even thinking about anything being wrong with my physical body. I said, okay, let's just do the good news and then we can talk about the bad news. Well, I said the good news is you're not having an aneurysm. Well, again, because I didn't even, why would I be having an aneurysm? That wasn't even on my radar. So I said, okay. I was very calm about it. No big deal. But the bad news is you have 20 pounds of your weight are tumors. 20 pounds of your weight are tumors. That still didn't really get my attention too much because basically at this point I'm slender. My abdomen is flat. There's nothing that you could physically see that was going on with my body that would be any type of sign of any alarm in my mind. But internally, is where all the chaos was going on. And after it, and eventually internally was going to become external. Internal was going to become external. And so we talked about it, and there was a program they had for women that they suggested I go to. It was a new project that they were working on. So they signed me up. I made an appointment scheduled to go in to speak with the physicians there about my situation and what was going on with my health. And so when I got there, actually, I want to say two things on my journey. I met three amazing physicians. And I'm going to tell you why they were amazing with this process, because they educated me. I didn't get to come in and just drop the ball and say, hey, something's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And this whole episode's about fix it. I want you to fix it. They also gave me information about what they thought was going on or what I could do. So a couple of things happened at that time. Was the first physician was getting ready to retire. And I won't say any of their names, but he was going to retire. And he basically came to me and he said, he did some tests and he says, well, you don't have diabetes. I mean, again, why would I expect to have diabetes? Well, that's not on my radar. He said, but there's a couple of things that are going on. He said, he taught me about the lymphatic system. That was one of the things, about the lymphatic system and moving it, and toxins. That was a way to release toxins in your body. So he started to educate me about different parts of the body of the system and what they did and the purpose of all of those systems. I don't know all of them, but I started to just be more aware of them. He also said that I need to continue to exercise and to move. That was very important for me to do at that time. But, I was moving, but not at the level that I should have been, but I was moving. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing all that. The second physician, the female physician, was just amazing. Even though there was tension between us, very, very amazing. So we started with a couple of things, and she talked to me about my diet or eating habits. Now, my question is, what does my eating habits have to do with fibroids? That's me, because I saw no connection of what I put in my body causing any type of harm to my body. I was so disconnected, totally. So she asked me a couple of questions. She asked me about water. Since our bodies are about between 70 and 80% water, how much water was I providing to my system? Of course, anything she asked me, I said, oh, I'm doing it. I just kind of dismissed her like, I'm doing it. She asked me about the foods, the type of foods I was eating. She asked me about the amount of red meat I was eating. I said, oh, I don't eat that much. So whatever she said, I wasn't doing, because my whole thing was, you need to fix me. That's what I'm here for. You need to figure it out. It's not for me to figure out, which is totally turning over your own health to someone else and not taking full responsibility. But I wasn't there yet. I wanted to be fixed. So everything she said, I just would go back and forth like a ping pong match. We went back and forth, and whatever she said, I didn't do that much of it. I wasn't having those kind of problems, and food had nothing to do with what I was putting in my body. So as far as I was concerned, you know what? What's next? Let's go next. And so again, I didn't have any signs of the fibroids. I didn't have any discomfort at that point, but it was coming. It was coming. About a month later, I woke up, and now the elephant was in the room, because now I started to, my abdomen started to protrude. And as it started to protrude, it started off being like a little small, like a little bump, where you could see it that my abdomen wasn't flat, but a little bit, but not enough to be concerned about it. And then within 4 months, literally 4 months, I looked 4 months pregnant. And so what happened was, and this time it would go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, once I started to look like I was 4 months pregnant, that's when I started to become concerned, because now my internal is external, and you can see what's going on with my body. So I went back to the physician, the female physician, and I spoke to her about it. And again, these physicians, I wouldn't say their names, because now somebody would probably try to sue them. But at this point, these are amazing people, because they're trying to guide me, and I am fighting for my limitation the whole time. So we went back, and so what's happening is, once that's in my body, those tumors are pressing on those arteries, which now is causing the blood pressure to go up. And I mean, it would go up and down, up and down, up and down. I had never had blood pressure problems before, but now it started to concern me. So I met with the physician and we talked about it. So she said that she would put me on a blood pressure medication. But this is the thing she gave me, the nugget that she gave me. She said, this is not a lifetime. This is not to get comfortable with and where you're not working on your own personal self-care. She told me that. So we decided that for 30 days, I would try blood pressure medication while we figure out what was going on within my body. And actually, I decided that I didn't want to be on it for no 30 days. And I was on it for about 2 weeks. Now, I would continue to have blood pressure problems off and on, off and on, off and on, off and on. Because again, I mean, I had now 9 objects, foreign objects in my body. And what they were doing now is that they're living off of my internal system. So my internal system is fighting for life, and these foreign objects are fighting for life as well. So my bloodstream, everything, and these fibroids are known to cause heavy bleeding. I didn't have any of that. I had no heavy bleeding whatsoever, but they continued to be in my body. So if I got stressed, they'd get bigger. If when I would sleep at night, I was unable to sleep at times because there was a restlessness that was going on within me in my internal body. So moving forward, I really got fed up. I got fed up because my body didn't look the way it used to look. I was having complications with my body. And of course, the big backup was I had fantastic insurance. So, you know what? When you have insurance, you don't have to do the work. You go and say, hey, fix me. This is the problem. This is why I'm paying for it. Now I'm at this point and I need help. Now, I'm going to say this here. Insurance is beneficial. If you're in a car accident or an accident happens to you, you definitely want to have coverage. You definitely want to have a physician there to support you. But if it's what happened was my body, the lifestyle I was living, and the lifestyle I was living, meaning the food I was providing for my body, that lifestyle no longer served my physical body. It didn't serve it anymore. And yet I kept trying to stuff it into the body. I kept doing it. And so my body just said, no more. We're not doing it anymore. So I got really fed up and tired and frustrated because clothes, changing that, going to work, trying to figure all of this out. And I was like, I am ready to have these things taken care of. And this is what we do. This is how we do in the system. A couple of things. How did they get there? That's the question. How did they actually get into my body? But instead of working on figuring that out, what we do is we cut, we prescribe, or we radiate. And then what happens is something else pops up in the body. So we continually are plugging in like a sinking boat. We're continually putting in plugs to hopefully that the water won't come in to the level that the boat will sink. So we do the same thing in our body. So medication, once you start on medication, it's like a certain dosage, and then it continues. It increases and increases and increases and increases until your life ends. But it's never a healing process. It's never about healing. It's about just almost like maintaining the disease at a certain level. It's disease maintenance. It's not health. It's not health and healing. That was my experience. That's what I found in my journey. So in that process, the blood pressure is going up. Things are starting to happen. So again, I had insurance. So I met with a surgeon, and I said, I'm tired of this. I'm simply tired of this roller coaster. And it hadn't been that long. It hadn't been that long at all. So before that, someone said, tell you what, let's go and try. And I always mispronounce this, but let's put you in full-blown menopause. Let's try that. And then what we're going to do, I think it's called the Lupron Depot shots. And if I'm mispronouncing, I apologize, but I'm going to give you those shots. They're about $250 an injection. We're going to give you those. Those are known to shrink. So I had 7 of those. And those fibroids never moved. They never shrunk at all. So everything they were trying, nothing happened. So by this time, I'm fed up. The blood pressure's high. I'm having some other things going on with the body, and I'm fed up. So I go to a physician, I said, I'm ready to have them cut out. I'm removed, basically, not remove them. I just have had it. So he sat down with me. We did a consultation. We talked about it. And he did another favor for me. He says, I want to wait a little bit before we do surgery because you just had 7 injections of this medicine or these chemicals in your body. And before I do surgery, I would like to at least take 90 days to have your body at least do a detox of some of those chemicals and those injections. I thought I had never heard of that. I thought, okay, why can't we do it now? But again, I met people who were educating me and who were guiding me. So I said, okay, let's do 90 days. Let's do 90 days. But I wasn't planning on making any changes. I guess the whole thing was they were just going to, the shots or the medication was just going to evaporate from my body. So because I wasn't making no changes. So we didn't wait 90 days. I worked for a contract where I had amazing insurance. Everything was going great. And within 30 days of that contract ended, which means now that insurance was getting ready to end, which means now the surgery was getting ready to end. Now, I didn't know about any programs or anything at that time. So my mind was I only knew about insurance, I only knew about going to certain physicians. That was my path. I didn't know about any of outside resources, none of that. I only knew about what I knew. And I sat down because I was so frustrated. And I'm like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And someone actually gave me a book. It's called Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And Louise Hay had cancer at one point in her life. And she talks about her journey of healing herself from cancer. So that book, it took me a year to actually embrace it and read it, but I started the journey. And so now I'm in the level of I'm starting to go into panic. Panic meaning if I don't have insurance, if I'm only going to be given blood pressure medication when it goes up or something, and they're not shrinking, what's next? What's next for me? That's when basically I think was the biggest revelation and the biggest education for me, and that the universe was speaking so loud to me, so loud. So I sat down and I said, what's next? What do I do now? What do I actually do? So I did panic. And I did have a couple of physicians I contacted, like my blood pressure would go up. I'd end up in the emergency room, and I'd come home and it'd go down, it'd go back up, and I would go back and forth. And so finally I started just looking at alternative health methods, alternative ways to heal this body. And the reason I did that because I'm from down south, and I had a grandmother growing up that would go around and she would work with individuals who were sick. And so she would work with them. And one of the things as a child, I don't know why it stuck in my mind, that anytime anyone was sick, no one gave them solid food. No one gave them solid food because the digestive system needed to rest. And so all they received was liquids. And I'm from down south, so it'd be collard greens and we call it pot liquor. Pot liquor. They'd get pot liquor until their body was strong enough and digestive system was strong enough to absorb and process the food and put it through the intestines that it could go through and not be blocked. So that's one of the things I remembered about that. I don't know why, but it stuck in my mind of how the digestive system. The other thing, I guess, with my grandmother and talking about, we were on a farm. And one of the things we had very little meat. Meat was almost a way of seasoning the food. And we had our biggest meals on Sunday. So no one ate meat 7 days a week. First of all, if you have a farm and you do that, you would have no livestock, period. We were not big beef eaters either. We were not big on beef. And for whatever reason, beef was always heavy in my system and it just didn't digest as well. That was also like a red flag. And the biggest one for I guess I would say in the community I lived in was chicken. I mean, people ate chicken all the time. But the chicken they ate was chicken that was in their backyards. They would kill a chicken, eat it, and it would be fresh. It would be salted. It would be whatever, but it wouldn't be something that was in I would call it a corporate store. So in leaving that country and coming into the city, I had access to all types of foods I had never had. I had never had a pizza until I was grown, a grown female. Because down south, we didn't do snacks either. There was no such thing as snacks. There was either junk food or food. And the junk food was specified that you only got a very small amount of it. It was not your main meal. So my lifestyle started to really change. Once the more options I had, the more I started to embrace things that no longer aligned with me spiritually, physically, or mentally. And it was catching up with me. And so these are some of the things that start to happen in my, just from me personally. So I started to panic. I panicked. So when I would have something go wrong, I would call the physician and I would panic. So I went from being cool, calm, because I had insurance, to panicking because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a clue. So I just started to ask for guidance. What do I do? What do I do at this point to reconnect with this body, to really reconnect with this body that I had no connection with, that I was pouring any and everything into it? I would go to McDonald's and have one of my things was strawberry milkshakes, which is no strawberries, and it wasn't even, none of it was real, and none of the ingredients were real in that milkshake, but I loved it. Or I would eat bread that wasn't homemade, that was processed. I ate a whole lot of processed food that did not provide any nourishment for the body. And so my digestive system was backed up, and I'm sure I was extremely dehydrated because I wasn't incorporating fruits and vegetables. A little bit, but not enough. Not enough at all. And then there's a letter we call, in this country, I guess they call it stress. We call it stress, meaning that we take on things that don't align with us, and then it becomes physical. Our bodies start to react to what's going on. There's a book, and I don't remember the name, and I'll have to get it, but it's called The Emotional Code. And it talks about your health and your emotions and how that impacts what's going on within you. Because we think that everything is external. We think that whatever we do has nothing to do with this physical body. And one of the things it said to us, it says, it's our temple. It's the temple. It's what you come here with, and it's what you leave here with. And it's the only thing that we don't want to deal with. We deal with everything except for that. So in process of all of that, I basically started to read books about health. I didn't read about fibroids as much, but just health. Different ways to heal the body. And I started to just incorporate different modalities, I did acupuncture. I started with that. I can't say at the beginning that the fibroids started to shrink. They didn't. I did massages. I did a colon cleanse. I did a little bit of colon cleanse. I did, what else? Later on, I did other things like grounding. I started to do different modalities, lots of different modalities. I can't really say that the fibroids, they shrunk a little bit, but not enough. Now, this process took me years. This was not an overnight thing. It took me years to do this. So finally, I came back to what the female physician had said. She had talked about my diet, my meal, because that's the only thing I wasn't changing. I hadn't changed that at all. I kept doing the same things. And so I started to slowly remove things from my body, such as processed foods that provided no nutrition whatsoever. Now, because I was hooked on certain things, I was hooked on number one. I love potato chips. Love potato chips. I love barbecue potato chips. And so that was my go-to snack. When I was little, I used to love Reese's peanut butter cups. There were all kinds of things that I would say loved, I was really attached to and didn't want to let go of. Again, I was fighting for my limitations, as I say. So as time went on, I had to start, and also I would go out to restaurants and I would eat. And I loved shrimp, and I loved fried onion rings, and there's all kinds of things that I loved because of the taste, but it didn't love me. And I had to separate myself from what loved me and what I loved. And so that took a minute for me to sort through all of that and figure that out. It took a long time, actually, for me to do that. So I started with what they call the word organic. That's the buzzword, organic. So I started to eat organic. But organic still, I could still have the potato chips. I could still have other processed foods. They were just organic. So it took me a while to understand what organic really meant, because it had been used as a marketing strategy and put on a label. But it wasn't organic in the sense of, it wasn't something. Organic to me is something that comes from nature, fruits and vegetables. That's organic. Everything else is man-made. And so we can put the word organic on it as if we made it or created it, but we didn't. So I had to eventually let go of all processed food. All processed food. The other thing is organic. I used to buy organic sugar. Organic sugar as another thing. So I would season and do my food with, I'd add sugar to something, and it'd be organic. There was just the biggest one I used to love pasta. I was big on pasta. And what happened was, one day I was told this tip: if you want to know if your pasta's cooked, take it, throw it against like a wall of the cupboard or somewhere, and then if it sticks, then it's done. So one day I did this organic pasta. I cooked it, put it up on it. It hit the cupboard door, but guess what? It wouldn't come down. I couldn't get it off the cupboard door. When it dried, I had to take a knife and scrape it. And when I scraped the pasta off, the paint came off with it. I said, if it does that to the cupboard, what is it doing to my internal system? What's happening there? So I backed off from that because I was shown things of food and how it's working and within my system. So water. Water is something that I would have a little bit of, but guess what? I was drinking water out of those plastic bottles. Plastic. I wasn't using glass. I wasn't using copper. I wasn't using ceramic. I was using plastic bottles, which are made out of petroleum. So I'm still drinking something that's inside of something that has a lot that's made from chemicals. So all of that, again, is going into my body. I would have to learn that. One of the things, again, kombucha. I love kombucha, and I still love kombucha. And there's a company that I drank their kombucha for years, and I just found out that they are adding sugar to their kombucha. And before they would do it with kiwi, they would sweeten with kiwi, and it was natural. So I had to adjust. When I started to make these changes, I had to adjust my lifestyle in order to heal my body. And I'll say it again, I had to to change my lifestyle, adjust my lifestyle in order to start the healing process, because what was around me was not about, it was more entertainment. The food was entertainment. It had a taste bud. It tastes a certain way. It may have had some sentimental memories to it, but it had nothing to do with maintaining the body that I was given. It was not about a maintenance. It was just a feel-good entertainment moment for me. And then, of course, another thing is, I would get this food that was processed food, and then I'd pray on it. I'd pray over it like some magic. I'm going to pray over this food, and even though it's not even good for me, I'm going to pray that, that I'm blessed. The body will be blessed with this, even though I know that this is not the food I should be eating. So this is going on with my body and the fibroids, and like I said, they're getting bigger, and and then my weight would never go down. I would get on a scale, and within that, with those fibroids, when they finally started to become like I'm a 4-month pregnant woman, I gained 30 pounds. Now, looking at me, you would be able to tell. It became 20, it went to 30 pounds of my weight. And at this point, it was in my abdomen, internal, my stomach area, where all of this started. And it kept growing. So I knew at some point, again, it was going to be a problem. I end up stressing myself out along the way. Again, I keep saying I stress myself out where I end up having an ulcer because I didn't know what I was doing. So the body was just going all, like a red flag, red, 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 red. I was getting those signals all the time. But as time went on, when I finally was able to calm myself down and stop, and I started, one of the things that started to help me do that was I was introduced to meditation. I was introduced to meditation, even though everything was still going crazy, nothing had changed. But the meditation, sitting down, starting out, and the mind went crazy when I first started. I mean, every thought you can think of came. I mean, it was like thoughts. But you learn to dismiss those thoughts after a while, and you still learn to move forward. But meditation, what was great about that was during my meditation, I would get messages. I would start to get messages as time went on. It took about 6 months probably, but I started to get, and my intuition started to heighten. And I started to listen to that. Whether it sounded crazy or not, I started to listen to it. And that's how I was able to move forward and take action. Like I said, I went back to a woman, and she's Chinese, who did acupuncture. And we had a consultation. And she said to me, one of the reasons your body is turning on you this way, is that you have lost your creativity. And again, I'm going to fight everything you say because I'm going to defend my actions. I'm going to defend my actions even though they're getting me nowhere and I'm in trouble. But I'm going to defend because I'm addicted. I'm addicted to food. I'm addicted to a lifestyle that's in serving me. So I'm going to defend that lifestyle. I'm going to defend my behavior. And so she said about creativity. And I didn't really understand what she meant by being creative. What do you mean creative? I am creative. I mean, I'm out here doing things, so I'm definitely creative. But I'm not a creator. I'm not a creator. I'm not creating the life that I want to really live. I'm living in a life that serves other people. The life I'm living no longer serves me. I didn't realize that either. So as a creator, I had lost my creativity. That was one individual along the way. And then later on, I met someone about water. So they introduced me to water and the type of water that I should be drinking instead of just tap and bottled water. And they talked about alkaline water. They talked about distilled water. They talked about all different types of water. But I did start to incorporate more water into my body. But in incorporating more water into my body, I still had work to do because the water wasn't 100% hydrating me. It wasn't hydrating me. It wasn't doing it. Not what the level it should have been. It wasn't. Because I still needed those fruits and those vegetables. I hadn't gotten to that level yet. Eventually, as time went on, and this again, we're talking about years. This is not an overnight thing. Years. I eventually I got on a garlic kick at one point. I did lots of garlic. I went through a garlic phase. I went through all kinds of phases or whatever. But about 2016, someone gave me a juicer. They gave me a juicer. And I told them I wanted to do raw. I was going to do raw food. Or I wanted to juice, basically. I wanted to juice. I hadn't got the raw. I wanted to juice. And in that process, they loaned me their juicer. And for 8 months, I juiced. I did juicing once a day, but I did juicing. The first time I juiced, I did a bike ride. I got on a bike. I was able to I did 12 miles one way and 12 miles back. I did 24 miles on a bike, and it didn't even exhaust me. That's the level that my body, see, the body doesn't lie. That's when that life force was back in that body. Now you would think, okay, the life force back in that body and all that, and it was 8 months of that. But then I stopped doing it. I had other things going on. You got to cut up, you got to chop, you got to do that. I mean, I had other things to do, even though the body was showing me how wonderful and amazing. And probably at that time, if I had stuck with it, I would have been much, much further ahead of the game. But I still didn't get the message. I was still fighting for my limitations. I still wasn't there yet. So as time went on, I did the things I need to do. Some of the fibroids, I went back, they did shrink. So I didn't have 9 in my body, but I still had about 6 left, probably 5 or 6 of them still there, that they weren't going anywhere. And at this time, I had no interest in surgery. I had no interest in having them removed surgically. Basically at this point, I was in the game, I was in this, and I was determined to figure out how to rid my body of these fibroids and have them never return. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to get surgery and turn around a year from now, 5 years from now, oh, they're back. Once they're gone, over with, I didn't want them back in my body at all. So I continued on, and about what really finally made me come to terms was around 2019. And in 2019 was when it was starting to, I had projects and I was doing some things, but my life had just took a turn. But it was almost like it's time. And then 2020, we had, the country shut down. Well, the world shut down, basically. And when the world shut down, I said at this time, this is the time for you to start really reconnecting with yourself. Other people went into panic. I saw it as an opportunity. If you're going to do it, if you're going to reconnect, if you're going to be serious about healing, it's the time to do it. What happened was then I waited about a year, 2020, I had made some changes, and I was eating a lot healthier. I was eating a lot of more greens, and I was eating some fruits and things like that. And then 2021 is when I went 100%. I started doing raw. And I was like, how did I do raw? I was somewhere in the library somewhere, and this book, I was looking at it in the library, and the book just fell on the floor. It just simply fell on the floor in front of me. And I started investigating raw. Now, I wasn't the best cook in the beginning anyway, so that wasn't going to be a loss for me. Nobody was like loving the food that I was preparing for them. So that wasn't like, oh, I'm going to lose something. But now traditionally in my family, there were great cooks. That was, the family meal was like almost like it was a ceremony. It was a ritual. It was a, come to Jesus moment, I guess you would say, for eating. But that was never me. And even younger, that was never me. And I never was attached to food in that way. I always knew that there was something, I don't know, that there's something else. There was, that some people have something within them that they know that there's something quite not right. Now, did it taste good? Yes. But it still, again, what was good, tastes good, doesn't mean it was good for me. I went on and I went in full force about 2021. I went full force. And I started doing beet juice. At that time, I did beet juice. I was sick of beet juice, actually. But for a whole year, I did beet juice. And I'd mix other things with it. And then I basically did that. And I would incorporate other things still. I would do some cooked food, but I would incorporate some other little foods into it. But it wasn't 100%. But I eventually decided that at that point, when I finally made up my mind to go raw, I stopped everything. And I juiced every single day. Every day. It took about probably a couple of years before I saw some results, because I had let this go on for quite some time. But I saw in my body a change. I saw the fibroids. And how do you know that they shrunk? I would press against my abdomen. I could feel them. I would put my hands on my abdomen and I could feel those fibroids within me. And I could push them. I could feel them. And I would start, the ones that were left, and I would start to feel. And I felt the flatness return to my abdomen. I felt the flatness return. And then of course I wanted to just double check and, to make sure and get scanned, but I felt them leaving. I felt also in juicing and becoming raw, I felt clarity. I felt where, because of the digestive system being overloaded and because of all that I had put into my system and that I had not done cleansing on a regular basis, and I was literally when I say backed up, I mean probably backed up for years. Not backed up in the sense of my system was just backed up. I started to see a lightness return to me. I started to see life force enter my body again by just going raw. And I'm going to tell you, raw is for everyone. It's not for everyone, and I'm not going to suggest it's for everyone. But I also will say that I would definitely look at juicing. I would definitely look at doing some type of fast or doing some type of taking a break from cooked food and putting a plan together, so that if you're eating cooked food 365 days a week, 3 times a day, I would definitely look at giving your digestive system a break, because most of us, that's the one system that we're using over and over and over and over. It never gets rest. We're always putting something pretty much in our mouths to heal us, not heal us, I'm sorry, to soothe us, to take away whatever pain we have. We use food as a way to medicate us. And I would definitely suggest that people just take a break in whatever way they feel comfortable doing that, and giving that digestive system, giving it a break itself. But coming full forward, coming to now, I am fibroid free. I would tell you that. There is healing that has happened in my body. Now, has everything healed? But no, when you do natural and you put foods that are like, when you put foods like fruits and vegetables within your body, what it does a lot of times is that when it does healing, it doesn't just go to, like you say, oh, I want to have my whatever. You decide there's something that my fibroids, I want them to heal. Before it gets to the fibroids, there are other things in your body, because if one thing is out of whack, there's a whole lot of other things that are not in balance. So if you're going to go to one method and say, this is the one thing I'm going to heal, and when I've done that, it's done, that's not true. This is a holistic body, holistic, WH, whole. And so when you're doing that, you have to look at other things that are going on, because again, the body's out of balance. The fibroids was telling me my body was out of balance. And there are things I need to incorporate to get it back in balance. Now, because the body's out of balance, guess what? The blood pressure is out of balance. That means, the blood flow could be out of balance. That means that other things that could mean the digestive system is out of balance. The lymphatic system is not working. Like eventually it would get to my liver. That won't be working. Eventually the kidneys will be impacted. That might not be working. Eventually, because of all the stress in the body, my oxygen level is going to go down. So all that one thing could start to impact every little thing that's going on in this system that we have, that we think is functioning on an optimum level, and it's not. Because I would highly suggest that there's one thing out of balance. I'm going to repeat myself. There's more than that, because that one thing is impacting everything, a lot more than you even think. So again, this is one of my tests. I'm just testing my podcast, and I just wanted to just chime in today and share my story about how I started my journey and why I started my journey. And I truly, truly, truly believe, and I not only believe, I know for a fact that what I'm doing does work. And not only that, I've seen it in other people. It doesn't mean that what I'm saying, it may not be your truth. It's my truth. It may resonate with you. It may not resonate with you. The biggest thing is, this is my story, and this is my process, and this is what I did to reconnect with my body, to reconnect with my mind, to reconnect with my soul and my spirit. This is what I did. So, wellness community, for those of you who are still listening, I appreciate you. Thank you for chiming in today. Please share my podcast and my story with other people who may need to be inspired to take the steps to do that. I also have my email address in the description box. You can reach out to me and ask me a lot more questions of how I did this. And this is another thing, I'm still doing it. So because I healed the fibroids, it doesn't mean I've had years and years and years of eating the wrong food. I've had years and years and years of doing things that didn't align with the body. So it doesn't mean because I did that I'm everything is like fine. Things are better, the body is stronger and the body can definitely deal with a lot more at this point. But it doesn't mean that the journey is over. The healing journey is going to be a part of my life until there's no life. But at this point also, I have a thing I said, health is ageless. So in the Bible it says, for those of you who ever looked at the Bible says we're to live 120 years. That's what it says. And most of the time, we're lucky if we get to 50 or 60. And if we get to 50 or 60 or 70, most of the time we're lucky to still be walking and talking and functioning and engaged in the life that was given to us as a gift. Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking with you again. Grace to all of you.